On to another edition of Throwing Out Some Heavy Light. My name is Jamal Binding. I'm the chair of the board of Movement in Omaha for Racial Equity, which is an organization that deals with anti-racism and race equity issues and some of the segregation and apartheid condition in our community, and bringing that to light and helping people to talk about those issues that keep us divided. And so today with us today, we have Washelle Davis, who is a long-time community person involved in a lot of activities. She's also a board member, and she's served in various positions in our community, and so on. She has been involved in voter education, dealing with returning citizens, or those leaving the Nebraska Department of Corrections, and so on. She's familiar with many of the grassroots issues that impact our community, particularly African American issues. We invited her to talk about activities that she's involved in and what we need to do to improve the plight of working class families in our community. Michelle, can you share a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, well, I am born and raised in Omaha. I got all my schooling in Omaha. I know one thing I like to lead with is that when I was a teenager, when I was 16 and 17, 15, 16, 17, things like that, I remember people my age, we were just, going to school, learning, after school activity consisted of some rapping and some dancing, and things were really fun. And I remember, you know, our communities being introduced to drugs and people turning into gang members, and I just remember that was like a new thing that I had never seen before. And because of my environment, I remember getting into that lifestyle and not knowing how it just came out the blue, and it just showed up. And like I said, I got engaged in that, and that kind of derailed the path that I was on. I thought I was going to play basketball in college and go get the education and just be the smarty pants. And before all of that, happened, it was like people around me start turning into gang members. They start dealing drugs, and I'm like, what? Next thing I was involved, and I still been trying to get back on the right path from disassociating with that, going right into motherhood and trying to figure all this out. So, I like to say that I'm from my community, the depths of it, and the experiences I've had been experienced a lot of people that I know have. And our story is valid, so a lot of people don't like to lead with that, but I pretty much speak to my experience.
Okay.
So here I am, just a woman that's still here, still surviving, thriving. And so I like to consider myself a success story. I'm still alive. I made it. I'm still going. I'm focused. So that's who I
Good,
am, Rachel, a
good,
woman.
good, good. Now, you've worked out you're working out a location, I know, in North Omaha now, and you worked in other nonprofits. What are some of the challenges we face in the community as African Americans from your perspective?
I think a lot of the challenges come with those preconceived notions. Seems like people, when you interact with people, they just know your story. They're just judging you, or they have these thoughts about you. And I think we even buy into them ourselves, where, um, I think mental slavery still exists in our communities, and a lot of people are functioning from that perspective. I just think mental illness, a lot's going on. Lots going on.
It is apparent that your latest project deals with folks who are getting out of the Nebraska Department of Corrections, are, as they say, returning citizens and so on, and they're getting their rights back, and especially when it comes to voting. Why is voting so important for people getting out of the institutions of corrections and prisons or whereas elsewhere, from your perspective?
Well, I think it's important because I think if you're a citizen, then more than likely you're paying taxes, and if you're paying taxes, you should have a say in what the direction the government goes in. If you don't, then you have taxation without representation, and that's unfair. So equity across the board is very important, especially with the vote, because you go do your time, and there's a stigma that goes with it. It's almost like you've been detached from society, and it's like you return back to society, and it's like, you still can't vote, and it's like, why not? If you did your time, these people are the one who said you get 2 to 3 years. After 3 years, you think, okay, my time is over, but it's not, because as soon as you get out, Now you have to deal with all the ramifications. I can't vote. It's hard to find housing. It's hard to find jobs. You can't pursue this career. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it's like, when does that come to an end? So, you need laws that say that at some point that comes to an end. And voter restoration, which in Nebraska has become law, actually becomes law in a couple of days, July 19th. So I think that's very important that one person, one vote. Everyone, like they say, unless you've committed treason, you should have the right to vote as a citizen.
Good. We had a previous interview about the problems inmates face in the state penitentiary. This was a little bit earlier. What are some of the low-hanging fruits that we must address as we're going to reform the system, particularly dealing with the Department of Corrections?
Whoa, wow, that's interesting. I think we need to really start from a preventative standpoint. I think education a lot needs to go into place where we're providing so much education to the youth, the adults, that people are just trying to avoid the penitentiary. Because once you're in there, all that low hanging fruit, people like me don't know about it because we haven't been on the inside. You and I, we haven't been on the inside, so we don't really know. But when I listen to my brother, who's a lifer, talk about what's going on in the penitentiary, it's hard for them to get the type of books that, historically speaking, have uh, rehabilitated a lot of those brothers. They can't get their books. This one guy was telling me, he's a boxer. He said he was in the joint, walking on the yard. He was just out there throwing blows and stuff like that, and the people were like, "Yo, you can't do that." You know, that's almost criminal just to exercise like you're fighting. It's like, so there's a lot going on. I think again, we have to be on the preventive end, because once you're in there, I mean, I like to equate the penitentiary system to modern day slavery myself. So it's like, how do you fix slavery? I don't know, but I know one thing: we got to stop going into those penitentiaries. By all means, we have to just start walking the straight and narrow, do whatever it takes just to not end up in there. Because a lot of people don't realize, once you get that felony conviction, you can't bear arms, you can't vote, uh, you can't run for office, you can't be on jury duty. If you're not on jury duty, especially as a Black person of color, then you're going to be dealing with those all white juries, because a felony conviction keeps you from being on a jury. So it's like, we really got to get ahead of this, because it's just getting out of control. They're giving out too much time. The penitentiary stay at capacity because people are being sentenced to 20 to 60 years. Judges are giving people 150 years. I mean, do you even know anybody who's 150 years old? So it's like, come on, are you serious? But it's that out of control. That's why I say it reminded me of slavery, because slavery is one of those things, you were in it at birth to the day you died. And now the penitentiary is just like that. A 20-year-old makes a mistake, a 25-year-old make a mistake, 150 years. I mean, 150 years don't give you room for rehabilitation. What? I mean, come on now. It's like, we got to get ahead of it,
You
with
know what?
education,
A
to
question
encourage our
for you.
people not to go that
Well,
route.
sure. A question for you. Why do judges give people 150 years when technically they should give them like 10 years or 5 years or whatever? Why does this extra time come in? What's that all about? What's behind their mindset? I don't know how they think, because most of them are all white and racist, but help me understand why they do those crazy numbers. What is that
I
all?
guess I wouldn't know, because I'm not white and racist. I would never think
I'm
to
thinking
give
it's
anyone
political. I'm
those
thinking it's
judgments.
political because if somebody can't live to be 70 to 90 years old, why would you say 150? And I wonder if it's got something to do with good time. So if they say so many years, does that mean they know you're not going to get out if they give it up front? I
I
thought there
think,
were sentencing guidelines to stop that, but I don't understand it. I really don't.
it's you continue to build more penitentiaries, then you got to have
Oh,
people in them.
okay. They
You're going to
make
keep
money
building
off it.
penitentiaries for
Okay,
profit,
that makes
and
sense.
it's like, okay, I can give you 5 years, but 10 years I might not have one prison. But
Okay, so
to
they're
take care
making
of
money.
that, I'm
It's
going to
all
give you
about
150. Keep this system in place for the next 150
Okay,
years
that
at
makes
least.
sense. No real
That's just what I think.
rehabilitation. Okay, I understand
Yeah.
now. Now I couldn't understand the mentality of those excessive times, and also some of the times that are victimless crime, meaning nobody's killed or hurt, and they want to give people excessive time. And then you see some people, because they got friends of the system or good lawyers, they get less time or probation. And I just recently saw where you got a lot of those people who work for the Department of Transportation and stealing gasoline and doing stuff. And I bet that nobody's going to go to trial for stealing government work, government commodities or whatever, like gasoline, or driving a car for private use. And the state auditor just came out and said a lot of them are doing all those kind of things. And again, you see a lot of those guys get slapped on the wrist, and they keep their jobs, and you name it. So it's kind of crazy. One of the things I was going to ask you, and I think it's, you have contact with students as someone, and you've been around public school folks and so on. And I know you've had kids and grandkids who've been in systems. Our education seems a little bit different now. And I heard some things that the graduation rate for African Americans is not as good, and they're not doing as good on some of the tests. As a parent, as a grandparent, what do you think we should do to improve education as you know it in this community or in other communities?
Um, Again, I like to speak from experience, and I remember when I was going through the whole school thing myself, it was like cool. But when I started getting that knowledge of self and I started reading books about Black people, our plights, our struggles, where we were prior to, this physical enslavement in the Americas, that really did something for me, and it was doing something different for me that schools didn't do, because in school, a lot of times they were pushing information on us that wasn't from our psychology, it wasn't from our history, and it was just hard for me to show interest into those things. But as soon as I started learning about myself, my people, and the great things we've done, historically speaking, and even currently speaking, it was just like that right there drew me in. I think something that they need to do for schools right now, especially in Nebraska. There's so many immigrants there now that Spanish is almost, I mean, it's like you have to speak Spanish in the schools now. I mean, then you got, other groups coming in. I can't even name them all, but they're speaking their languages. And it seemed like Black Americans, we know English. So it's like now we're going to have to get into these other languages, because I believe that the schools are being slowed up because of this. Because, my granddaughter, she's in third grade, and the majority of the school are Korean kids. And it's like they speak English and stuff like that. But I'm just wondering, like, what is that really like, to be in school with people that you've never seen before in life, and now they're predominant and they're speaking their language, they're speaking your language, and our kids sitting there looking like, I don't know Spanish, I don't know this language, I don't know that language. All they know is English. They're just behind. And it's like Black kids, I'm speaking about in particular, we need to know who we are. We need to know more about our people that look like them. I believe white people are so successful because when they look at all the presidents, all the corporate business owners, they see people like themselves, and I think that make them strive to say, hey, such and such looks like me, I can do it. We need more representation from our people, you know uh, especially, a lot of our people, they go get the money and stuff, and they don't come back to the communities to influence the people. And I think that needs to be happening. I don't think you need to be a star athlete. I mean, even our lawyers, somebody come back and be of influence to the people that need it, that
Mhm.
looks like them in their communities or communities where their people reside. I
Mhm.
just don't think we have enough in our face saying you could do it.
Well, I will say that there are very few African American family-centered men who work in OPS. They have traditionally gotten rid of a lot of African American men. If you look at the curriculum, you look at the staff members' leadership, and particularly under Dr. Logan, she fired at least 3 or 4 African Americans, or let them go under some pretext of her arrogant self. So again, you have to have the total representation of the different genders in our school system curriculums, and particularly in our schools where the majority of us are African Americans. And so again, OPS and other institutions that use public dollars should make sure they have people in various positions so that, as you alluded to, we can see those individuals in our circles and ascribe to be doctors, lawyers, plumbers, whatever you want to be. But you'll never get that if they expose you to no one but their monoculture personalities. Now,
I so agree with that. That's such
now,
a
it's,
major
it's
problem.
painful. The arrogance of government and local. You walk in and you feel like you're in a Klan meeting, or you look at I went to UNO one time and they had a cabinet meeting. Everybody was white at the table, and there was probably about 20 people. I'm like, how's that possible in Omaha? There's 35% people of color. Something's going on. So we got to challenge these apartheid segregated spaces, particularly when they're being funded by public dollars, and we need to call them on. And they got these fake DEI directors and people who are not dealing with stuff. Another question I was going to ask you. Many have noted that nonprofit and community members must build capital and work effectively. Malcolm X once said our biggest challenge is internal conflicts we have, basically because of our religion, political parties, and other factors. What can we do to help develop a little bit more cohesiveness or block so we can change the conditions, particularly in Omaha and apartheid, because it seems like we're divided. So how can we stop some of this internal conflict we have as African Americans and other people of color? What would you suggest? How would you help get the bridge or make us come together in a cohesive manner to impact the systems?
Um, when I was working at the Heartland Worker Center, we did a lot of community meet. Matter of fact, we did monthly community meetings. So every month we would have a community meeting, and that was very effective as far as making sure people's voices were being heard. Uh, However, after COVID, it was hard to get those numbers back up and to get community members to come back to those meetings. I'm no longer at the Heartland Worker Center, but community meetings would be good. I think coalition building is very important, but we got to understand that there's uh, power in the people. There's power in numbers. I mean, we're doing anything if it's just one or two people, three people doing it, it's too small, you know. And we got this whole thing where we don't want to come together for nothing. Well, as long as we got that mentality, there'll be nothing changed. So it's like we got to start thinking outside of the box. We got to be the change that we want to see. A lot of people tell you, I wanted this, I want to see this, I want that. But if you're not pursuing it, you're not going out there trying to be the change that you want to see, it's not likely that anybody else will do it either. So a lot of us just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because this work has to happen. We
Mhm.
can't wish it upon ourselves.
It was 20 years ago. I remember my mother at St. Martin de Porres, and we were talking about this whole issue of community coming together. And she said, let something happen to one of your kids or something, you'll come out. But for other people, kids, you don't. So she said to the point that if it's controversial, if it's something that's dramatic, will show up some days. But in terms of the day-to-day monitoring, we don't do that. And so we have to have people who are in community engaging, folks organizing. And I've talked to leaders of the Urban League and different folks. They have a certain level of contempt for our community, and so they don't like holding forums and community meetings. And again, they get paid public dollars to bring people of despair, let's say diverse backgrounds together. And again, you'll go by their buildings, are empty, and all you see is a food truck sitting outside. And so we got to get back to the old days where we bring people in and proactively deal with strategic plans. But if you got an organization don't have a strategic plan, the director is smart as a gnat or something, you're going to have that. And so again, all I'm saying is show me your top three things you did besides men who cook or having a barbecue fest or swine fest or something like that. And again, I'm not mad at people who eat pork because I eat pork myself. But again, the way they go about it is like they stuck on the ears and the pig feet and not dealing with other issues in our community. So again, the proof is in the pudding. If you go and look at the most significant things and the numbers who come to their doors, they're not doing the face to face like we did back in the day. But yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
we got to
what I
we
do.
got to do that. Whether house gatherings, I mean, even the churches, they gotta. I don't know what's going on with the churches. They used to lead the movements.
Well,
I like to
COVID
say
affected them, right? Didn't they lose half their membership? COVID, they got sick and died or something. I mean, the churches are almost empty. I saw on
that's
TV.
true
Do,
too.
do people still go to church?
They
I'm not
still
being
go.
funny, but okay. Because
The
I
numbers
sometimes
aren't as
drive
large
our
as they were,
parking
but they
lots and
still go.
okay, good. I'm glad to hear that they
Mhm.
do get some use for the buildings. Um, we often don't talk about gender relations. I know you've been involved in community issues and women's issues, so on, as a liberated person. And there's this issue of conflict between men and women in our community. Some say it can be traced to historical trauma. Again, some will say the whole impact of enslavement affected us years later. And we need to address these by looking at the single parent households and so on. What are your experiences on some of those topics as our intercommunication amongst male and females in terms of us as African Americans?
Honestly, I think this mass incarceration has a lot to do with single parenting, like we were speaking of earlier. If you give a black man 50 years, and he has a woman, a wife, kids, I mean, her household could practically be empty for the next 50 years, you know? Um,
It's true. That's
I'm just
crazy.
saying
It's
they're taking,
crazy.
yeah, they're the whole like a lot of us need Section 8 and stuff to get on our feet. And those organizations aren't really in full support of males being in the house.
You talking about
Uh
Section 8 programs and those kind of so-called programs that help people in our community? They don't
yeah,
support the men?
exactly. That's a
Yeah.
problem. I heard this one lady say that um Black people, unlike a lot of nationalities, we are too vocal about things that happen in our homes. There's like you kind of look at other nationalities and you don't hear them putting down their woman and putting down their
I
man. It
got
was
you.
like, but in our community, we real quick to this dude, this chick, this and that. I just don't think that's healthy. Let me also say this: I'm single, and I also heard that if you're single, you shouldn't give advice on relationships. But I don't know. I think I looked at my father and his marriage, and I know they put God at the head of their marriage, but I know a lot of people say they do. But um, I mean, if you just saying that and you're really not doing it, that could be a problem. Um, Also, as far as arguing and stuff, relationships, I think that should be something between the man and the woman. It's not for the whole family, to be a part of. I think we just gotta protect our relationships more. A lot of people don't protect their relationships at the level that they should, it appears, but again, I'm single, so I don't know if I'm the expert on relationships or how to fix all that.
Well, the other thing I used an example years ago. Willie Barney was talking about marriage and relationships and how we need to help people grow or something or to that nature. And he made a comment that those who are not Christian shouldn't participate in this. And I'm saying it doesn't matter what your religion or faith, who you are. We should all be helping us to develop relationship in our community, help each other. So that's the issue. I'm going to switch up and ask you. We've always asked community leaders incredible message and folks in the know if they have spoken at UNO or secondary education, let's say Metro Community College, you name it. And also, I talk about Black studies here also, social work. Have you ever been invited, with looking at your skill as an organizer, engaging person, to talk at the university in any capacity? I know they got a Goodrich program out there that's been out there over 40 years, and I wonder how many community members they bring in from different agencies and nonprofits to do that. So, do you have any experience of being able to help educate those students who are post-secondary education in any of these local universities or colleges yourself?
None,
Wow.
none.
I asked Dr. Pope the same thing. She says she is taught sometime, but she doesn't get invited. And there's different people you would think they would bring them into blacks, particularly Black studies, because some people teaching there obviously don't know this community well. So that's another thing. The other question I was going to ask you is, someone told me you did a bit of rapping and freestyling back in the day. What is that genre of music like, and why is it so important for the youth in our community, and particularly you're a long time person involved in that? Give me a little background on that.
Oh, yeah, rap. That was my thing for a long, long time.
By the way, did you ever produce any albums or any CDs or what they call anything like
Yeah,
music?
I have like 5 albums out.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I did music for over 20 years.
And all in
Um,
Omaha.
well, I would create my music in Atlanta and Omaha. Um, but yeah, you can say all Omaha. I was pretty much a resident of Omaha the whole time. But hip hop to me was everything as a teenager because it was like people saying things that you only thought about. So it was like very inspiring. I remember rappers like you might not be familiar with like Poor Righteous Teachers.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I just know Bug Thugs and Harmony or Tupac or something like that. I don't even. I
Definitely
just.
Tupac, but yeah, the rappers were basically the voice. They were like our Malcolm X's, our Dr. Kings. They would stand on the soapbox, the pulpit, put the word out there. That's how rappers came across to me.
Mhm.
However, black people create things, and being that we aren't great managers of our own money, typically other people end up managing our money, our careers, and deciding, the best road to take. And I saw rap music go from inspiration to just I don't even know what to call. I call rap music
What do you say
fat
it went
music
from
nowadays.
inspiration to something? You mean something negative now? It's not like it
Yeah,
used to
something
be.
negative because like it was good at first. It was really good, educational, inspiring. And then it kind of just turned to like something designed to just self-destruct. And
Hmm.
like a lot of the rap music I hear now, I don't really care for it. And I'm hoping that we have some type of
Why you don't
um
care for it? Help me explain what's going on. I'm again, it's a different
well,
genre
because now
generation
it's
to me.
like, for one thing, it sounds like they're mumbling. I mean, you need a lyric sheet to even follow the lyrics. And back in the day, it's like you just knew them lyrics. It was loud, it was clear. Now they just be mumbling and bragging about being on all these drugs, and I don't know. It's just it's shameful to me. I mean I've matured. You know, of course I've grown. You know, but I just really don't care for rap music now. And I have to admit, my daughter's a rapper now, and I could be a little biased because I listen to a lot of her rap. And, you know, she uses the N word and talks crazy too, but it's just not so excessive as some of the other rappers. And it's clear. I actually know what she's saying. So I don't know. I got faith that rap music will turn around because every so often you'll hear a rapper and you'll be like, oh my, okay, I feel that. You know, I feel you. Okay, it might come back, but rap is the voice of the community. It's the voice of the people. Um, but you know, you got bad actors, and you know, a lot of the rap music is to me, it's not up to par. But
Yeah, but
I don't have a
speaking of that, I've never been to Culture House, but I saw something on the Facebook that Culture House does a lot of rap stuff. What comes out of that when you go to a contest or a demonstration, where they say an event? What Culture House does a lot of that thing. But have you ever been to Culture House, and what is it like there?
Yeah, I was just recently at the Culture House. They had a fashion show, so they were showing the work of a lot of the fashion designers here in Omaha, and I think there were some fashion designers from other places too. But yeah, I like what the Culture House is doing. I've never been to one of their rap shows, but that whole back area has the stage, a lot of room, a lot of art. You know, the sound system is good. I'm optimistic about the Culture House. The guy who runs the Culture House is a rapper. He's actually a good rapper. I mean, the type of rap that I like, he's actually doing that type of rap. So that's why I say there's still some hope for rap music. So shout outs to Coach House.
Yeah, I do know in common, some people say he has constructive stuff, so like that. We're down to, before we open it up, anything you want to share with our, before we move on to ask the participants to participate in this discussion? Anything else? And I know you're a board member more and been involved in more and stuff, but anything else you want to share before we move it on?
One thing I want to share is the importance of getting out and voting in this November election. You know, and when I'm in the community, I hear a lot of people say they're not going to vote, but you know, people need to understand the role of the president, what he does, in contrast to the role of the governor, what he does, in contrast to the role of the mayor, what that role is. So they understand how it affects them directly because politics affect you directly. When you're not, when I say, like, when they got that saying, one person, one vote, it's like, I'm one person. I only get one vote. I can only go vote for White Shell. A lot of people, when you don't vote, it's like, did you think? I mean, it's like allowing other people to vote for you. It's like Dr. Donna Polk said this to me. She said one time when I told her when I wasn't a voter, I said, you know, I don't vote. And she's like, why not? And I called myself telling her why not. And she literally plugged her ears on me. And I'm like, Dr. Donna, respectfully, you know, why you plug your ears on me? And she was like, you know, why I just never took you to be the type of person who would allow other people to make decisions for them. And when she said that to me, the light came on. Like, that's exactly what I'm doing. I thought about my big brother as a lifer and how, you know, laws were in place that, you know, caused him to be a lifer. I thought about, again, like when we were teenagers and that drug world just came up on us and we didn't know what we were involved in, and you know, our rights were taken away. You know, it's like people, fortunately, because of the right to vote, a lot of those people who were getting those 30-year drug convictions, sentences, and things like that, laws have been passed to get those people out. So it's like, you, too many people worry about the personality. I don't like him. I don't like her. And I'm thinking, don't get so caught up on him and her. Get caught up on what's on the ballot. There are big things on the ballot that are going to affect how your life is, like the voter ID bill. You know, because people weren't just totally concerned about that petition was out. Now it's been complicated. The whole voting process is being complicated because a lot of people don't have access to the IDs,
Mhm.
or they just needed a reason why they shouldn't go vote. And now it's
Mhm.
like, oh, you got to provide your ID. Man, if you got to do all that, I ain't gonna vote. So you see how things keep getting complicated and just in a disarray because people aren't handling their business. Voting is a right; it's a responsibility. We should feel responsible, just like, you know, we get up and go to work because it's a right, it's a responsibility. We should vote. We should allow our opinions to be heard, and we shouldn't get caught up with these personalities. One thing about these personalities, whether whoever you vote, I'm hoping you vote for someone who your values align with. You know, so when you think about the personality, just think about anyway. Go vote November 5th. Please go vote. Have your IDs ready too.
Yeah.
Or you can still vote by early vote by mail. Do whatever you got to do to vote, because in this primary election that we just had, numbers decreased dramatically from 2020. I mean, they're still better than 2012, 2016, but for all the work we do as organized, we were optimistically hoping that these 2024 numbers would look better than 2020. And in the primary election, they didn't. So go out and vote, because we can still improve those numbers for the general election. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, right at the halftime. So, folks, one of the things we do for those who are on the Zoom or Facebook Live is you can raise a question or comment. Again, one of the things we value is we can disagree, and again, be able to have a civil or normal discourse on the issues at the hand. So, if someone would like to ask Washil a comment, or share a comment or ask a question or throw some other light out, feel free to at this point. So you just have to unmute your mic, and if those who don't want to say something, they can type it in the chat, and we'll share that with Washil. So, Shel, what is your official position? You call yourself community organizer? Is that what you say? Or community voter registration? How do you classify yourself? Is it multifaceted? What you do?
My role at the Nebraska table is the civic engagement strategist. So I'm concerned with our civic engagement fund and our coalition building and training that goes out to our member organizations.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, you'd be surprised at the numbers that are low and who turns out and who don't. And as some people say, there are a lot of people can complain and whine, but you never see them getting involved and trying to change the course of our communities and our society. So it's very important for us to come out and engage each other.
That's right, because if you think about the population that is the heaviest in voting, they are also the least in complaining.
Right.
They go out and vote, they have it their way. If you go out and vote and handle your business, you could possibly have it your way.
Okay, someone raise your hand. Tara, you can say something. Unmute yourself and say something.
Alrighty, I just want to say that I thank you, Aisha, for all your efforts in the community. I see what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, and you do give me things to think about in the voting era. So I do thank you.
Thank you,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, sis.
Yeah. You know, this is one of the first years I've voted since I was 18 years old, and except when I was out of the country. But I'm really at a standstill of looking at some of the characters who are running. I'm going to vote, but on the national level, it's like, man, this is the best we can do. And so I know it's hard for people to do that, but also I know locally there's people I want to vote against. And so sometimes one of my colleagues said, sometimes you don't vote for some person, you vote for this person so that someone don't get in. But there's all kinds of reasons why you vote. And I notice that some of these politicians, you don't see them until it's election time. They'll come out, and you never see them come in our communities or engage with our families until they want to get elected. And after they get elected, you won't hear nothing from any of them. So there's a lot of issues related to voting, registration, and so on. And this voter ID is going to have some impact on people too.
Oh yeah, because I think that's kind of really what messed with our primary numbers was the voter ID.
You have to show an ID to vote, and you also have to sign and do a lot of more stuff than you had to do before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Other feedback, other reactions out there. Any other comments? We might have to end earlier. People just don't say anything. Interesting.
I don't know. When you start talking about voting, everybody go to sleep. I don't know why. Especially with all the extreme nonsense that's going on right now. I think a lot of people forget that we got an independent party too. A lot of people just be like, I don't like neither one of them. I'll be like, neither. You do know it. Whole other sectors exist, and I don't know.
Yeah, I've been registered as an independent. I was a Democrat for maybe about 6 months, and I figured I didn't want to be part of that party. I want to be independent, and I've never been switched. Again, the way our system is, Nebraska, you can vote only in the general sometime, and not in some of those different areas. But again, people have a right to vote, in especially small things. Terry, you have something else to say? Go ahead. All right, your hand is up, or is that an accident? Or maybe it's an accident. Okay.
Oh, I was talking with my mic off. My apologies.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. I was like, oh, how does that work? Okay.
Since you brought up the independent thing, can you expound on that? Because I do have some questions on that. Like when you, if you do decide, okay, don't like him, don't like her, let's do the independent. Does
Well,
that some way sway, does that some way push the vote to another party when you do that, or does it take away from a party? Like,
no,
can you say how
yeah,
that is
let me
beneficial?
explain. Let me explain. I don't like a lot of stuff that the Democrats do. I think they're just a
Mm-hmm.
paternalistic or whatever. But I tend to lean towards some of the things to do with social justice. And so what I'm saying is, I never vote straight party lines all the time. And sometimes if I don't like somebody, I won't vote. But what I'm saying is, I'm registered independent. But in Nebraska, then some people you can't vote for unless you're part of that party. So I have to be a Republican to vote for a Republican person in the beginning. It's not until November I get to vote for whatever. But I don't. I'm like Lucky Dubie, the late Lucky Dubie the South. I mean, he says the only party I like is a musical party because I think a lot of stuff they talk about, they're coneheads, they're stupid, they're just ignorant, and some of them they don't. I mean, I look on their web pages and they got some of the most asinine things they say or do, and so I may support one issue. And again, in Nebraska, unicameral was supposed to be nonpartisan, so basically you're supposed to be looking at people's party. But the only reason I'm saying I'm independent because I'm not in a camp, and there are some people they'll vote straight Republican, they'll vote straight Democrat, and with an independent, you just say I can go either way. And I have in my life voted for a Republican a couple of times. I like Chuck Hagel because he came out to Charles Drew and he gave them about $5 million when I was on the board of directors, and I voted for him over the Democratic person. And then I look at some of these people who run for office. You won't see them. So all of basically by being independent, it just means you're not aligned with any one of them. And we have the guy who runs for president up in North, is in Rhode Island or whatever, New Hampshire. He's an independent. He's one of the very few independents in the Senate. But yeah, you don't have to pick a party to be able to involve in. And then again, the mayor and people in city council and county commission, you can be independent and deal with support them. I vote for them, but most of them play the party game, and that's when they all vote the same way, like they're robots, and they sometimes won't consider the issues. And that's when we're in the conditions we are in our country because people don't want to think beside their party lines. But all it means is you're just not going to be dancing in their house all day. You may go and get a little of their smorgasbord and go to nobody else's house. If I could break it down to make it simple. But it doesn't mean you're locked in. But they won't let you in Nebraska vote in the primaries for some of those people in either parties. They'll give you the thing with just about judges or whatever they're doing there. Does that make sense? Or am I
Yes.
talking too fast? Okay.
No, yes, it did. I never really knew how that worked if you jump around like that. Like,
Yeah.
does it give another party the chance to jump ahead if you do that? So that did kind of give me some kind of insight. So
Yeah,
thank
and here's another thing I think goes with this school issue. People can support private schools and not necessarily be negative against public schools. In other words, the arrogance of us thinking if we don't support someone, they're going to lose. They're not entitled to my vote. I mean, you're not entitled to an income if you don't do the work. And so what I'm trying to say in so many words is if somebody loses the election, it's not because I didn't vote or did vote. And I use the example of my father. My father passed away a couple of years ago. He was 94 years old when he passed, and he's from a place near Tolet, Arkansas, and he never voted his whole life. And then when President Obama was running for election, my sister converted and convinced him that if he didn't vote, Obama might lose. So he voted twice in his whole life. My mother was voting all the time, but he was not interested in that. That's just who he was. And the other thing he shared with me, and I didn't know this until late in life, that he was in Washington, D.C. the same day they had that Martin Luther King out here dream speech. He said he didn't go to it. That was not of interest to him. Again, that's my father. He's from the certain areas, and his issue was getting out of the South, so he didn't get involved in a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean he wasn't a good father. He didn't help raise 14 children. You follow me? So my point is, we have to be careful when we say if you don't vote, you don't count. You count regardless. But I do think part of the reason we have the problems in our community is because many of us don't push these politicians to do their job. Because as Ernie Chambers says, sometimes we have a choice to vote over one rat over another rat, and that happens. And sometimes you don't want either one of them. And I've had a colleague, I'm not going to mention her name on our board. She said she one time had her daughter push the button to vote because she had to hold her nose to do it. But she didn't want to vote for him, but she felt obligated. And so there's all kinds of reasons why you do or do not. But I'm just disappointed in the number of people on the school board, district elections. They don't come to the community. They don't engage us. And we got to help educate our people. And I think before we started, Shell and I was talking about, a lot of people don't know the difference between county government, state government, federal government, and we got to do a better job of educating what many of these people do because they're getting our tax money, and it's paid.
And something else that a lot of people don't realize with the ballot too is that when they say I don't like him, I don't like her, whoever, they think that the ballot has to be complete, like everything has to be answered. You don't have to answer everything on that ballot, and it still counts.
It's not
So
a multiple choice exam. That's funny.
they like, well, yeah, because I don't. Okay, so forget them. Go vote for everything else on the ballot. If that's the case, it's like
That's
you don't
funny.
have to complete it. It's one of those things that count even if it's incomplete.
And sometimes when I was younger, I used to write my name in. I'm like, I'm better than these clowns. I don't know anything about the
Exactly. You
office.
could write your name
I write
in.
it Duck, Donald Duck, whatever. And again, there's nothing against the law. You can do what you want to do with your ballot,
That's
and
right.
you hand it in. But yeah, they don't always add up to much. I mean, I thought Popeye was going to win the last election, but you know, but yeah, you can do what you want to do. But these are the conversations we need to have as a community, because I think if we engage ourselves and educate ourselves on why you engage and write letters and stay involved in advocacy, it makes it a lot easier for us to do. But we do have some of the lowest numbers in the African American community in terms of voting turnout. And the reason why in Douglas County, at one point, I heard the Democrats outnumber the Republicans, but Bacon get elected because those folks turn out. And again, people fat mouth and say this and that, but at the end of the day, they won't bust a grape and go to the election. And it's on some of the booth. It's only like maybe a few blocks from the house or whatever. And plus, you can mail in ballots. Some people are just too darn lazy to do that. And so
Yeah, a
we just
lot of this comes to laziness too, or in the case of like in defense of someone like your father. Um, I don't recall ever voting as a teenager or a young adult. I
So wait,
think
hold on. Now that you confessed on TV, what was the first age that you voted? Now that you outed yourself, I'm curious.
honestly, I
What
don't
year was it?
recall the one time I remember is the Obama election when
That
I
was it. So
did.
you like the same way, so you identify
Yeah,
it.
like because I just can't imagine politics being of importance to me at any other period in my life. Like I said, when I was having the conversation with Dr. Donna, and she asked, and that was in 2018, and she asked me about voting. 2018, I could care less about any of this. But then when she called me out again, I think it had a lot of influence on me because here she is, an elder, a black woman. She's the ED of this nonprofit I work for. And like I said, when you have someone that looks like you to influence you, that does something to you. You know what I'm saying? So when I had Dr. Donna there, impressing up on me, being influential to me, when she said, "Why, sure, I didn't take you as the type of person to allow people to make decisions for you." I kind of felt like somebody at that moment, like, damn straight, Dr. Donna, I'm important. My vote is important. You're right. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, and that moment she did something for me, just by, you know, indicating that I was of important. My voice was important. Like, why would you have that voice of all voices denied, when all
Right.
you gotta do is go out there and show up and cast a vote. Something else about our people, and I say again, I speak from experience. When I got into this whole civic engagement realm, all this stuff, what really kind of kept me there is the fact that I had to be honest with myself. I didn't know how the government worked. I didn't know the difference between the federal government elections and the state and the local and how bills work. This was a whole new thing for me that I had to just learn because I I remember social studies in school, but like I said, I didn't know nothing about all this stuff. And when she called me out like that, I was more challenged to learn more. And thank God for organizations like the Heartland Worker Centers and the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table. They exist so people could be more educated on this whole civic piece, political processing. A lot of us just don't know how this stuff works. We won't admit it because we think we know everything, and we think Google gonna educate us on everything, but that's not the case. This is something that requires research and due diligence because it's very important work, and it's the type of work to make the world go round.
There's a question in the chat on the race. Before I do, I want to share one other thing. The League of Women Voters came out to register people at an event we did with Bree Fuller, one of the first board members to do a community forum in years in North Omaha. I don't know if they've done since then, but they were there. And then I called the League of Women Voters because they were doing something. Said that more would volunteer to help them with a book discussion that's related to why you get engaged, and they never got back to me. Again, you got the Women League of Voters. Obviously, they got their agendas and so on, but there's got to be different ways to reach out to the community, particularly when you're trying to help people to vote. But I would love to see them notch their game up in our community and do other activities that help get people excited about voting. There's a question in here that says, how can we get people to stay engaged after the election? And then it says, or understand the policies and bills that are being passed that directly affect their family. So how do you do that after the elections? That's a question
Um,
directed to you.
yeah, so like I was talking about those community meetings, we need to be having monthly community meetings. We were even doing them bi-weekly, but the coalition building, like I said, the house meetings, you just got to keep your people. And then it's like your senator. Like right now in the D2, we got Senator Terrell McKinney. Senator Terrell
Use the
McKinney.
word D2. What does D2 mean?
Oh, District
District
2.
2?
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, we got some of us don't know what D2. I thought you was about Obi Kanabi or something on Star Wars D2. Okay, okay, good.
Like yeah, the district that we live in. Senator, reaching out to your senators, those elected officials, they work for you. You elected them to do this job for you. So reach out to those people. The coalition building piece is really big because depending on, like, if you get a whole bunch of like-minded individuals to work on something, then that could last forever. Uh, for instance, like I don't know why Black women in Nebraska don't have a coalition for all of our kids that keep going to the penitentiary. It seems like our kids are being hunted in that community. And I just can't believe we don't have a coalition of women fighting back against that. We're just all losing our babies, like crazy. I talk
So,
to
so,
women
so
who,
if I'm hearing you well, you're saying we should have an organization in our community that brings people together on people who have kids in families who are incarcerated, like a coalition to help talk about support and so on.
yeah, we need
Okay,
stuff like that. And like I said, this whole be the change that you want to see. People have to be the change that they want to see. Because you wishing that this is exist, your wish might not come true. You
right,
have to
I
get
hear you.
out there and make things happen.
Uh,
So
No, I was gonna say there's another question came in at you that someone wanted you to ask you. It says, how would you talk to younger people about voting? Many of them want quick change and feel like and feel like old white women, men who can't relate to them. How do we get them to show up? I had to laugh
for
when
one
I heard it.
thing, we got to have conversations with them. In this work, we call them one-on-ones. But have a conversation
Wait,
with the
wait,
youth.
help me explain this one-on-one. What does that mean when you say that one-on-one?
A one-on-one, that means like me and that youth, we sit together for,
Okay, one-on-one
we
person.
can have some tea, a smoothie. I don't drink pop. He can drink pop. I'll drink some water. But we just sit up and then we'll talk, and I'll ask that kid, what is your self-interest? What are the things that you're concerned about? What are you passionate about? And then you kind of take their responses and you tie them to the whole voting process.
I got
Again, the work you do, when they see you putting yourself out there as a community leader and stuff like that, and a lot of people don't want to do this type of work because it's not attractive. You don't make the most money in the world. But when you see people that go out here and do this type of work, again, that's going to influence you. But when those youth look up and they don't see a concerned adults worried about voting outside of these civic engagement organizations. They don't see that type of stuff.
you.
That's why Dr. Martin Luther King had large following. Brother Malcolm X had large followings. They put themselves out there to do work, ugly work. It's not pretty. But our kids need to see more people putting themselves out there, being more vocal. A lot of people are in our community, Black communities especially, aren't vocal. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I would say that, but my job." You ain't even at work talking about what your job gonna do to you for saying something. Come on now, what you talking about? You
That's
know,
funny how you said that. That's funny. It's like people, don't you know, when you get off at 5 o'clock, you're your own person. I can
you
tell
your own
people,
person. They still
yeah,
talking.
you
Oh
can't
no,
tell me what I work for 8 to 5. I'm not in the military and I work for the police department. So basically, I get to go home and be my regular self. And the only person I had to deal with was my family. But other than that, I can't have nobody tell me nothing to do after once I walked out of the office unless I did something crazy or whatever. But something that was raised earlier is that we have to get organizations like Habitat for Humanity who have no full political or social footprint in helping the families move beyond their day-to-day work. I don't know what they do. They don't respond to my letters, emails, or whatever. They got some people in there, but every organization that serves low-income families or people of color, they need to have some kind of built-in process that they help educate folks on how they move beyond their direct assistance, like food pantries. What are we doing to make sure that people who are low income get enough either government assistance or whatever, they don't have to rely on private churches or charities and go drive in lines and pick up free food in the richest country in the world or one of the richest cities in the world. So we got to figure out these nonprofits need to move beyond their six-figure incomes for their directors and someone making $200,000 or $300,000 a year. How can we help those families that we serve that they can become independent from direct assistance from basic food issues like that? Again, I think those are required for all of us, but they need to help educate us so we can be involved in change. Because I just saw now we got all kinds of scandals, money that They've been paying extra money from the department. They lose money every year to people stealing or misappropriating money that could be help low-income families get out of poverty. So we just have to do that. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to give other folks a chance to comment or feedback. And Michelle, anything you want to say related to helping us change the paradigm and change our community as it looks today?
Black people, I think we really need to be fighting for something like reparations. I
Mhm.
mean, what this country has done to us as a people has cost us so many lives. It's cost us so much money. Like somebody needs to address our needs because, as you see, immigrants come into this country and they do. Some of them say, oh, it's only 90 days worth of this and that, but it's like we need our money. We don't own anything. Like corporations. When you're talking about corporations, you don't see black CEOs, things of that nature. I mean, we need that. I mean, we need some we black people gotta understand the importance of if the government's not gonna pay us what they owe us, we have to start putting our money together to build something. Black Americans are in a very peculiar situation. Like when some people come into this country, they still have ties to home. They still pulling money from their country. Black Americans, we don't have those type of ties to Africa or anywhere else in the world. So it's kind of like we out here fending for ourselves, trying to get this government to do right by us, and they refuse to recognize that they have wronged us and they need to right those wrongs. And the best way to right their wrongs is going to be through finances and resources because the apology is not working. You know, are we even getting apologies? I don't know. Have you heard one?
Well, I know some
But
cities are giving some reparations. California's talking about it. There's some smaller cities are doing it, and some of that reparation comes in the form of making sure there's group support. In other words, those who are the most destitute. So it's a conversation we need to have because we work for, was this Malcolm says, from sun up to sundown, 450 years of enslavement and Jim Crowism and
and what do we have to
apartheid
show for
behavior.
it?
So we got to change the situation. If not, we're going to see all of our families members locked up in prison, jail. It's
Exactly. And
kind of
I'm
they
not
just
trying
build
to
a
see that.
kiddie jail, and it's
That's
terrible.
right.
And
It's
they're
horrible.
and they didn't even move the kiddies into jail. They kept them in the old place, and now it is a Taj Mahal for the judges and the lawyers and people. And they still do it. I heard from someone say they're doing telezoom with kids, so they don't even go to the courtroom. So these judges are sitting here dealing with kids through a camera versus in person. Again, COVID is not as bad as it was years ago. But how does that work? You build the millions of dollars, so you did a bait and switch, and we still increasing the numbers are keeping black kids and brown kids in there for a really long time. We have about 8 minutes left, but I want to ask you something else related to that. Have you ever dealt with some of the kids in the juvenile justice system? Have you seen any kids that go through that system yourself? Because you talked about
Yeah.
adult criminal
Yeah.
justice.
I've spoken with kids. I had a couple of my kids went through uh, the juvenile system,
Oh
and
wow.
it's I don't care for it much. I don't. I mean, I hate to say it, like the juvenile system, it's almost like the streets can get so bad that you kind of like it's bad, but you be like, okay, at least he's there. He's not out here getting murdered or catching, life sentences. But as far as the rehabilitation in there, I don't know if that's happening either. I
I
honestly
don't,
don't
they
know.
don't share their data. I know they hide it. And I just know that racially, 90%, 89% of kids are black and brown. And we got more white kids in this community. And so the judges in that diversion program, I was Sean Combs really don't have much of a program helping with people of color on a decent level. And they have not shared data on the level they should. And I've heard some asinine comments that some of that they don't give to because some of these kids they don't think they're going to be successful. But again, if you start off thinking kids are not going to succeed, you're going to get what you get through this school to prison pipeline. And someone need to call them out beside me because again, if the most of our
Besides you.
kids are going in there, somebody need to talk about their apartheid system. You got all these white administrators. They hire people who just are incompetent, don't know how to work with our community. And I would say, for the most part, many of them have never been in North and South Omaha to engage families. So how are you going to serve people if you never talk to them and you don't know anybody who could be your credible messenger? Again, my question back to you is, with your expertise, they should be having you coming in as a consultant because it's obvious they don't know what they're doing. The thing we're about 5 minutes up, but we just want to quickly ask you, Washel, what are some things you're going to be working on in the future? What are some things you're kind of excited about in your work that you hope to come out of what you're doing here in this community?
I'm really excited about the coalition building piece. It's kind of internal right now with my position, but I would really like to take the knowledge that I have from coalition building to the community and see people get more activated in our communities. You know, immediately I'm going to be doing the whole get out the vote because, I mean, this election can be very serious. People talking about democracy as we know it being changed. You know, a lot of fascism going on, authoritarianism going on. There's a lot of stuff that can go bad, you know, and I just think, you know, people take their rights for granted, you know, and it's like, do you people want your rights? Because if you don't, there's some people willing to strip you of all of it if you don't like rights. I like rights.
I like the way you phrase it. Do people really want your right? You're
You know, do
hungry. Do
y'all
you
want
really
your
want to eat?
rights?
That's funny. It's
You
like,
want
do
to eat,
you
want
really
to
want
eat.
to eat? You're hungry. Do you want to eat? I got the food for you.
Exactly.
You want you to put the food in your mouth? It reminds me of the pantry one time. We was breaking the sacks out, and somebody leaned up against the wall and says, can you bring it to me? No, bring your butt over and get this free food. And then somebody says, can you take it to my car? Was your arm broke? No, take your own food to the
Exactly. Like,
car.
come
You know, I
on.
can see if you're an elderly person, you're handicapped, but this is not room service, and this is not a grocery store.
Exactly.
Take your
And it's like,
lazy butt and get your butt up. We give you the free food. Get your butt out, and also some of these people who have no business coming to the pantry, parking their jack. I saw some late models cars. Again, I don't know people's business, but sometimes you gotta be careful with that image when you get something as a handout. Don't go out and get a free Christmas tree when you drive in a really nice Lexus or something. Stop being greedy. But anyway, we know our people. Hey, we're getting down to the last couple minutes, but I want before I close out, I wonder, Michelle, anything you would like to share with our listening audience, anything, or any other comments you want to. And by the way, how can someone catch up with you? If someone want to know more about how to catch up with you and talk to you, how would they catch up with you?
well, they could email me, Y apostrophe SHALL at the nebraskatable.org.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook under Wyshell Tarlon, which is spelled Tarlon.
Okay.
And I don't like to answer my cell phone. Oh, I can't stand when my phone rings, so I'm not going to give out my phone.
Okay. So in other words, people need to text you if they get their phone number.
Yeah, just send an email. I check them
Email is your
daily.
best way to deal with people. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I really appreciate you being here today. And one of the things we're trying to do, and again, those who may have missed the introduction, Rachelle Davis is one of our board members. And so we're trying to feature all of our board members because if you look at a lot of nonprofits, board members hide behind the cloak of secrecy. They don't see their name on the web page. And many of these directors are just outright incompetent, aren't afraid to deal with African Americans and so on, but yet they make their living off our community. And so we're trying to challenge that. But in order for us to challenge it, we got to be the role model by having our board members front and center. To be able to talk directly to the people in grassroots, and as Malcolm would say, talk to the grassroots, the people at the bottom. So that's one of the reasons we have Rochelle to just share some of her experience because she works with a lot of people in our community. So really appreciate you being here today.
Right. And as you just mentioned, like all those people that go to work, make all this money off all these prisoners and stuff like that. Imagine if all that money was given to that prisoner's family
Exactly.
to get them right, to help
Right.
pull them up by the bootstraps. They
Well, I
don't
mean,
want the money to come directly to us for some reason.
right. But even the money we waste giving to Israel to bomb innocent children and families, that's billions of dollars that we give that are killing innocent people. And we shouldn't be spending that kind of money on the military and also Ukraine that fight. All the money we spent, that could have been enough for some reparations, trillions of dollars.
Exactly.
And someone has
Exactly.
actually put a price tag of what it would cost for America to make it right. Because we can trace some of these corporations today that got their money off enslavement. Georgetown University is very quick to let you know that. Creighton University, all these folks, Jesuit, they kept detailed records of the stuff that they did. And yet we got these so-called
Insurance
black
companies
studies.
expect,
Yeah.
especially them.
Yeah, and we got these so-called black studies who's teaching them about, remember important date of this and that and whatever. Give me a break. Get your butt out in the community and do that. So we got to do that. The other thing I want to say is that we're going to have a number of guest speakers or guest presenters. Next, we're going to have Elijah Ali talk about that DMC, the kiddie jail, the school to prison pipeline, and the corruption that is involved in what we're doing. He believes that it's genocide when you take these young kids and you put them in that school to prison pipeline. And Dr. Logan, with her useless self, came in here on a broom and went out on a broom. She didn't bust a grape just like these other people who come in. The warden in Lincoln is an African American guy. You ain't seen him in the community talking to grassroots folks. They meet with each other as elite Negroes and so-called Negroes, as Malcolm called them. But we got to get people to be accountable. And if we don't have them accountable, then they're going to do the same thing they do. They come in and get money. They get their bonuses. They get $1 million bonuses. Dr. McKeel got $1 million on top of his salary, made off like a bandit. And then also we see the school district has a bill. They're so much in debt they can't even pay their pension. So again, all these are issues we can talk about as a community. So we want to have them. And then we got Dr. Miney's going to come on at some point, and we also have a person who's dealing with the Omaha Plantation Housing Authority. Is going to talk about the evilness of the bed bug. So we're going to call it like it is. And again, we take me to court and sue me for calling you a racist, whatever, because we can prove it in court that you're practicing segregation and racism, and you just look at your board of directors and so on. So these are things we're going to call you out on. And at the end of the day, we can't do nothing about it, and we can't get our community behind us. What is a good leader if there's no followers? And what good are followers if there's no leader? We got to come and ask ourselves these tough questions. So we hope you join us next week and the following weeks on Wednesday, so we can bring some tough issues and hopefully let people get a tongue in their mouth, and again, get a little spine in their backbone and stop being like, as Ernie says, spineless as a jellyfish. So hope
That's right.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to recommend for anyone watching this is that they, in Omaha, that is, go to the Afro-American bookstore and purchase you a copy of Walter Brooks' Trust No Shadows After Dark.
Excellent.
Recommended reading.
And by the way,
Recommended reading.
it's on our webpage. We did an interview with him. He did an excellent job, but he basically said the end is coming to the end for us if we don't wake up and see what people are doing. So thank you for watching us today, and hope you join us again next week and in the future as we start to bring some of the more challenging issues. We don't necessarily say controversial, we call them logical, because again, as Frederick Douglass said, a slave should never die a natural death. On that note,
Yes.
as we say, may the force be with you. Baroko.